It is. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, again, they've just started this thing up basically and just done a few test runs, and I think that this was basically just the detectors that were spotting, when the electron or proton was going around inside, and I think they don't have actually made any physical smashing yet. We'll see what happens when they begin and do some of their kind of major experiments. But one thing that really kind of boggled my mind, I've been thinking about regarding CERN, is that they're trying to recreate the first, or rather the following, like milliseconds after the Big Bang, right?
Correct.
And to me, it's more like the Big Bang, what that represents, it's something growing out of nothing, from that singularity, from that point that something is kind of expanding. But what they're doing here with CERN is kind of, to me, the opposite. They're actually smashing things together. Like it's a very explosive and kind of male and very masculine way of doing it.
Sure. No, I agree with you. But I mean, what they're observing is not only the moment that the Big Bang occurred, if in fact that's how this sort of matrix came to be, but it's an oscillation of the universe itself. It's the cosmic crunch and the expansion. So it's sort of like the heartbeat of this holographic realm that we live in, and they're basically looking at it from a point at the level of a God particle, which means basically, the things that make up, the quarks and the things that are even smaller and things like string theory. So they're going to be looking at the very essence of it all, and I think it's going to lead to breakthroughs in many realms of science and spirituality as well. I just watched this YouTube clip where they had the CNN advertisement, or not advertisement, just sort of a informative thing on CERN, and there's a subliminal in the actual logo. You see a planet. It's like the intro for CNN or something. And if you slow it down, there's this saucer-shaped UFO with these vortices on the north and south part of it. And it flies through the planet like in slow motion, basically. So you see this flying saucer with these like orbs coming out on both sides right before they talk about CERN. And I think it's curious too, Heinrich, that the geometry of its primary chamber is octagonal. I mean, in the synchronistic society, we talk about that all the time. The octagon and the number 8, or gate, as it is in the spelled in the number, is synonymous with the Stargate, which not only represents sort of the illumination of societal and individual cosmic consciousness, or sort of breaking open the head, but also the channeling and gating of interdimensional entities possible, and the bending and warping of space-time, and something that I talk about frequently called quantum superimposition, which is a fancy way of saying basically if the world can have any configuration or any possible arrangement, there's also a very of particles or fields. If the world basically could be in another configuration, the world can also be in a state which is a mixture of the two. So there's also very strong octagonal geometry configuration in structures like the Freedom Tower that's being built, where the 9/11 towers were collapsed. The pyramids are actually octagonal, although many will argue that they're not. On the facets of the sides, they're actually sort of indented towards the middle, so they are actually octagonal. Then you have the K2 or 1111 mountain range, and that's also octagonally shaped as well. And K2 is synonymous with Ketu. It's the Hindu god, and it's a very serpentine-looking god as well. And you have the television show Lost. Have you seen that? Any episodes from that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Been following not the recent series, not the recent season, I mean, but at the beginning of the first few seasons I watched, and I think it's really interesting, some of the stuff in.
The thing, or the facility is called the Dharma Initiative. Is placed in several research stations around the island, which take the form of these hidden underground facilities or bunkers. And each of the facilities have a particular logo associated with it, and it's basically inscribed within an octagon. Yes. And there's different particular symbols, like a hydra, a caduceus staff, or a white rabbit, and it's also known as the Looking Glass. So and then you have experiments at CERN being called Alice and being tied back to the Wonderland themes again. So there's obviously a very specific message being portrayed. It's just you have to read between the lines in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. I think J.J. Abrams, I think he's called, one of the creators behind Lost and a few other series. They have a new one coming out called Fringe, and that should apparently be quite interesting. I think there's one episode out online right now. I think I'm going to follow up on that. Have you heard about that? Steve?
I haven't heard of. I think I've heard about Fringe, but I'm not sure about the plot or anything else around it. But yes, I'm definitely looking forward to that. There's just so much going on right now. I had somebody email me and basically they said, do you ever find it overwhelming that not just one or two of these movies are so relevant to your research, but seemingly every movie at the movie theater right now has to do with it. And I couldn't say that 5 or 10 years ago. It really has come to a point where these esoteric topics are being subliminally and metaphorically infused in the plot lines of all major motion pictures, and it's so saturated that it's obviously affecting the collective mind, and it's a reflection of reality in that it's mimicking fiction at this point, or vice versa. And it's absolutely astonishing, some of the things that are coming out in these films. And it overlaps with a lot of the research I've been doing, basically the concept of who is watching the watchers.
Right.
It's look how far we've come from 9/11. I mean, look how many people have united and understood the message the cosmos left for us on that day. We inch ever closer to true knowing or gnosis. We inch closer to freedom. And the archetypical sort of Luciferian reign behind the scenes, which I believe is basically the worship of transdimensional ETs from the underverse or some kind of parasitic dimension. I think that is really coming to an end, and they sense they're losing power and they're losing grasp over the earth because our sheer will, our sheer numbers at this point, Henrik, are starting to overwhelm them. And a lot of people don't believe in the power of the collective consciousness, but I definitely do, and I think that. Combined right now with everybody that's doing the research that they're doing and things like YouTube and the internet, broadening ever so wider and Pandora's box going ever so deeper, that they are really losing their grasp on this sort of materialistic, sadistic behavior. And we're starting to the turn of the tide is coming, which is so amazing to see, and it's very hopeful.
Sounds very hopeful indeed. Absolutely. I mean, with so much kind of symbolism. Esotericism going on in movies, in TV series, what have you. I mean, one obviously tends to, ask that question. What does it all really mean? I mean, is this good or bad? What is this doing to the mass consciousness in that sense? Because I'm still thinking about the idea of those who are watching this, but potentially, I mean, we have to recognize that some people are not kind of interested at all in kind of analyzing. They're just sitting there watching this for entertainment, right? They basically are unaware in one sense. So what do you think? Do you think that change a person? Do you think it changes them?
That's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of it. Even if they're just watching for entertainment, it's subliminal and it's subconscious, and it's going to aid in the 12th monkey syndrome, or whatever you want to call that event. It's it's going to come to a boiling point where even the most cynic critics of this kind of conspiracy theory, once they start seeing the amount of people coming forward, they're going to start making the connections themselves to films that they've seen decades ago, and it's going to start to snowball and culminate into something massive. And even these skeptics are going to eventually turn, because it's not always about having tangible proof. It's about intuition. It's about it's impossible to describe something like a dream to somebody or a near-death experience. I mean, can you say what color or what a near-death experience smells like? You use your intuition. You use your spiritual awareness at that point. And people, all people I believe are aware that they're I mean, even atheists and people that are agnostic, I think, know that they're a little bit more than just carbon, flesh and blood, tubes walking around. The sheer idea that we're conscious and we're alive and we're talking to each other, and that there even is existence, is just too remarkable to ignore. And the intelligent design and symmetry and geometry of the cosmos is obviously not random or chaotic. It's at least to me. I know there are people that would state that, but it's too overwhelming and just wonderful to just know that you're alive and that you're mortal, and that we have this amnesia of that which is eternal, and we're slowly learning, and we're slowly relearning that which was forgotten very long ago.
Well, exactly, and I think even the process of again, I mean, many people talk that science is very, in that regard, unspiritual, But I can even see there in many cases, especially people that have been really kind of immersed into one area of science. I mean, we could talk about quantum mechanics, right? There are other areas here in science as well that actually have made people kind of religious, if you will, that they're discovering how incredibly intricate and detailed and beautiful weaved together the reality is of what they're studying, and they can't help but to realize that shit, there's something going on here. There's some kind of design here,
People are trying to even manifest these things happening. Like, it's absolutely limitless what we could do with our conscious intent, collectively as a species. There's a movement right now on YouTube that I've been absolutely bombarded with. I've probably received like 60 emails about it, and it's concerning this 3-day mass sighting of a 2,000-foot long alien craft over the skies of the southern United States. And they give a specific date. They say October 14th of this year this is going to occur, and it's going to hover there for 3 days. Now, skeptics are going to go crazy, and they're going to probably have a field day if it doesn't occur. But I think that the point behind this sort of 3-day first contact establishment, it's not so much a prophetic message as they're saying that we must unite and will for the event to occur. And a lot of people say, ETs won't fly down here and rescue us or do any of this unless we collectively in a large enough number want it to happen and manifest it. And that's amazing if you view reality or existence in a holographic way like I do. I think that if enough people focused their intent on something or meditated their intent on something, that it would definitely tangibly manifest. So now you have people asking for, sort of the firing the grid phenomenon. If enough people attempt to manifest their collective thought, then the results will be made tangible. And we see that being used against us by things like the New World Order and the Illuminists, who, have been basically using the perceived certainty of the faithful in the Christian religion and others for this possible Armageddon, World War III, destruction of Jerusalem, second coming type event.
Yes.
And I say they're using it against us because, George Bush Sr., who's basically the modern day Fuhrer with his Blackwater SS, which is, by the way, interestingly enough, uses the bear claw in the center of a target as their symbol, which can be traced back to the swastika as it's rooted in the aesthetics of polar Hyperborea and the Arctic race that sort of observed the past of Ursa Major, the bear, what it traced throughout the sky in the precession of the season. So their actual patchwork, the Blackwater patchwork, is the bear claw. So it's just a cleverly, disguised symbolic anagram for the swastika. And it's basically, what people that don't know, Blackwater is a private military compound founded in 1997 by a man named Eric Prince. And it's been alternatively been referred to as security contractor or mercenary organization, and it's the largest in the world. They pay these people an extreme amount of money to do what they do. And are you familiar with Benjamin Fulford?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard interviews with him?
Yeah.
He is one of the forerunners who've come forward about this, and others who state that basically when it comes down to the declaration of martial law or illegal search and seizure, or defiling any kind of civilian rights, you have to ask, will these men and women that work for Blackwater obey their orders? I mean, they are human beings. I mean, Hitler had 80% support, and what did the Bushes have, or the Bush regime have at this point? Even within the other 12 Illuminati families, I think you would say 10-15% if you're being extremely generous. He also says that there's a deadline set for September 30th of this year, which is the end of this month, to pay back an enormous debt that the Bush regime has incurred. And basically, they simply don't have a way of repaying it. So the hope is that another country or Japan would front the owed amount in some kind of stockpiled gold, because it's really in no one's interest to see America become financially crippled. And, we see the phenomenon absolutely saturated in the media as well, in particular the television show Jericho. Jericho was a series. Basically, it was a series that takes place in the aftermath of nuclear attacks on 23 major cities.
Yes.
In the United States. It's produced by CBS Paramount, so of course you have the all-seeing eye watermark on the bottom of the screen sort of glaring into your brain the whole time that you're viewing it. And the subtleties, right?
Yeah.
And how about the subtlety or the dragon or serpent-eyed Colosseum built for the Beijing Olympics? I recently read an article you posted on your website about the different symbolic implications of the placement of the iris in the eye. I think it was called Senpaku. Or is it- am I saying-